Ralph Ellison was born on March 1st, 1914 in Oklahoma City. He was raised by his mother, Ida Millsap. Sadly, his father, Lewis Ellison, died when he was 3. He grew up with his mother and younger brother, Herbert. His mother worked hard to support her children by working as a nurse, maid, janitor, and domestic. As Jim Crow laws were heavily enforced, Ellison started his education at the segregated Frederick Douglass School. He developed a love for language, classical music, and jazz from an early age. Ellison loved music, and he was expected to be a musician and a composer. He played his first instrument, a cornet, at age 8. By 19, he had enrolled at Tuskegee Institute as a music major, playing the trumpet. In Ellison's early childhood, Jim Crow laws, practices of white supremacy, and racial segregation, which were well enforced. While he attended the Tuskegee Institute in Tuskegee, Alabama from 1933 to 1936, he mainly studied music, but also had the opportunity to read on his own and spent much time in the school's library. Despite his lack of college degree, Ellison went on to write and teach at Rutgers University and Yale University. An opportunity for Ellison opened. A noted author by the name of Richard Wright invited him to write a book review for the 1937 issue, New Challenge. And Ellison's career took flight in the year of 1938. Ellison joined the Federal Writers Project, giving him the opportunity to do research and write mostly around folk tales in 1942. Ellison became managing editor of the Negro Quarterly and began to write novels, while he served as a cook and merchant marine during the World War II. During the war, he wrote his most notable novel, The Invisible Man, which took him 7 years to complete. After writing this novel, The Invisible Man, he began giving lectures to various of colleges and universities, some of which were Bard College, Rutgers University, the University of Chicago, Yale University, Columbia University, and New York University. He was also a member of the Fellowship of Southern Writers. It is also rumored that Ellison had been working on a novel over 1,000 pages long, and was expected to be published as a trilogy. During the 1930s, it was recorded that Ellison was connected with the Communist Party. This organization were allies in the fight for civil rights and supported black writers. Ellison was also multi-talented, being successful in jazz trumpeter, freelance photographer, and furniture maker, and electrochromic equipment. In the 1960s, Ellison became a controversial topic among many. Even though he was inspiring many with his writings, he was also criticized by blacks and whites. For instance, he was criticized by black nationalists such as Imamu Amiri Baraka and Ishmael Reed, who though Ellison to be unhelpful, hostile at worst, and arrogant when it came to black youth and sometimes white as well. During the 1970s, predominantly white critics became impatient with Ellison because he wouldn't produce another novel as The Invisible Man, which was his only novel. They thought he had gotten too comfortable with his glory with his one novel, although a majority of black critics praised Ellison for his work as they thought it was true to African American lifestyle. After a short-lived first marriage, Ellison married Fannie McCullen in 1946. A devoted couple, they lived together in an apartment on Riverside Drive in New York City until Ellison died in April of 1994. They had no children. Fannie McCullen Ellison died in 2005 at the age of 93. Ralph Ellison had many famous works in his lifetime of writing, but his most prosperous creation was The Invisible Man. The book was written upon a young African American man who moved to the North during the Renaissance. and the conflicts he had to face to fit into one society. The writing was so popular because it protested against racism and the invisibility of black people had to face in their society. It spoke loudly against black oppression, along with another famous writing of his called The Shadow and Act, which he wrote in 1964. In this writing, he considered how African American culture was essential to the world, but also misunderstood in the media. He wrote this book to protest this thought. The book was based on an interview with a middle-aged black woman who experienced poverty, discrimination during and after World War II. Ellison became known for his African American culture, knowledge, folklore, American studies, and creative writing. Ellison wrote his own protest against the oppression of black people because of his works. His work gave African Americans a space to conduct their own culture and showed the world that racial and social equality was essential to better ourselves in society, earning him the name of the Renaissance Man. Ellison was also influenced by many talented writers, but most famously by Richard Wright, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry James, William Faulkner, and many more, all of whom were novelists, poets, essayists, writers, and naturalists. His book, The Invisible Man, won the National Book Award for Fiction in 1953. 39 years later, he won the Anisfield Wolf Book Award for the same book. He earned this reward because of the impact it had on political and social equality. After all, Ralph Ellison once said, "Life is to be lived, not controlled, and humanity is won by continuing to play in the face of certain defeat."